Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys to a brand new episode of the Boombox Guru. I'm your host, LB, and on today's episode, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite punk rock bands known as Rancid. Now, Rancid, they are a Bay Area punk rock band that was formed in Albany, California back in 1991. Two members of the band, Tim Armstrong on guitar and vocals, Matt Freeman on bass and vocals. Both of these gentlemen were prior to Rancid's formation. They were in a well-renowned ska punk band known as Operation Ivy. And after that band's dissolution, Tim Armstrong, he started to fall into like alcoholism and other things. And Matt Freeman thought that it was a good idea that the two of them should get back together and make music in order to keep him focused and to keep him sober. So what they did was they hooked up with a drummer named Brett Reed, who was well known around the Bay Area, and that's how Rancid was formed. Not only that, but Rancid ended up becoming one of the premier bands during the 1990s punk rock revival, where punk rock had gained a lot of mainstream interest. And along with Green Day and The Offspring and a few other bands, they got a lot of attention, a lot of popularity during this period. And they released several albums that I really think are classic records. And even today, they're still continuing to do shows, write music, release albums. The members all have like their own like side projects and everything. With Lars Frederiksen, who joined the band after the first album. He has his project like he had a project known Lars Frederiksen and the Baxters. Tim Armstrong, he's done a few solo things, and he has that super group called the Transplants with Travis Barker and Skinhead Rob and so forth, man. But they're still continuing to put out quality music even today. But for this particular video, man, I wanted to focus on like the first 10 years, like from 93 to 2003, man, because to me, I think that's the best era of the band, and a lot of my favorite albums from Rancid come from that particular period. So I wanted to focus on that particular part of Rancid's history, man. So without further ado, man, we're gonna get into this video talking about Rancid, basically the first 10 years, 93 to 2003, those studio albums. And so stay tuned and keep it locked in. This is the Boombox Guru. All right, so starting with the debut album known as Rancid, released in 1993, and this came out on Epitaph Records, and it's actually the second release that they put out that was self-titled. The first release was an EP called Rancid that they put out on Lookout Records. And at this point, Rancid, they were pretty much a trio at this point. Lars Frederiksen hadn't joined the band yet, although he would join the band to support the tour for this album. He would come in and join the band at that point. But Rancid, this is the band's rawest and most aggressive album, in my opinion, man. This album is just pure, unadulterated punk rock, man. Like, from the first song all the way to the end, man, this record really doesn't let up, man. I mean, it's just full throttle all the way through. So many high energy songs, a lot of great fast tempos, a lot of galloping rhythms, man. Like Matt Freeman, his bass. This is one of the things that really set Rancid apart from most punk rock bands. Matt Freeman as a bassist, he actually leads the band's songs a lot of times, man, with his bass work, man. It's just so amazing. And then you have Tim Armstrong with his out of tune, kind of slurred singing approach to to his lyrics and everything like that. But if you read his lyrics, man, you'll see that Tim Armstrong he's like spitting some really good poetry and some very a lot of social commentary, some really deep stuff, man. And the pounding drums from Brett Reed, man, and those fast tempos, man, they're just crazy, man. But this was definitely a great debut for this band. I don't think it was really as successful as the later albums would be, but it was still a solid release, man, that really set the stage for where the band was going to be headed, man. But definitely probably the purest punk rock album that the band has put out thus far, man. And just a great debut, man. I really enjoyed this record, man. It's just such a high energy album. Every song just gets your adrenaline pumping, man. Just dig this album. So definitely, if you ever come across Rancid, which I like to call it Rancid 93, man, definitely pick this record up, man. One of the best 90s punk albums of all time, in my opinion. All right, so next on my list is the band's second album, known as Let's Go, released in 1994. And this would be the band's first album with Lars Frederiksen as a member. So he would join as second guitarist as well as vocals. And let me tell you, man, Lars Frederiksen joining the band was a welcome addition. It was a welcome addition because him coming in on second guitar, it gave the band a more fuller sound, and the whole chemistry between him and Tim Armstrong on vocals, man, is just undeniable. At this point, he becomes the co-lead vocalist of the band, even taking lead on a few songs. But I think for the most part on Let's Go, he's mainly doing backing vocals, which are very great, man, because he's a bit more of a better singer than Tim Armstrong compared in the context of Rancid. He's a better singer, but he just came in and added a different flavor to the band that was well needed, man. As much as I like the first record, I think that Let's Go was a bit of an improvement, man. There's a bit more of a diversity in a lot of the songs. It still has those fast tempos and those high energy and galloping rhythms, but there's a little bit of diversity. They kind of slow things down a little bit in certain sections of songs, and then they pick it right back up. And there's even a bit more of a catchiness to a lot of the songs on here, because anytime I listen to Let's Go, I always find myself like singing the songs all day in my head or humming the tunes and everything. There's a lot of catchy tracks on this particular album, man. But Let's Go definitely was calling it a solid follow-up doesn't really justify it, man. It was a great follow-up to the self-titled debut album. And I mean, they did such a great job on the songwriting and so forth, man. I mean, they were just taking it a step further with each album at this point, man. But just a great record. I really enjoyed this album, man. And it was only up from here after they released this record. But Let's Go, this is arguably one of their most popular albums, as well as one of their most accessible albums. You know, anytime I go into record stores, man, Let's Go is one of the main albums that I'll see all the time in the Rancid section. So this is a very easy album to find and to purchase, man. Highly recommend it, man. Solid follow-up. Okay, so next album on here, and this is the big one. This was the big one for Rancid right here, and that is Out Come the Wolves, released in 1995. So at this point in 95, mainstream interest in punk rock had really gained a lot of attention. So when Green Day blew up with Dookie, and then when the Offspring blew up with Smash, major labels were like scrambling to sign any and every punk band under the wind, and Rancid was no exception. As a matter of fact, there's a rumor that Madonna was wanting to sign them to Maverick Records, the label that she had at the time. And it's a rumor that she actually sent them like nude pictures of herself in order to woo them over to her label. And you got to keep in mind, this is 1990s Madonna, when she still had it going on. But in any case, Rancid, they decided to stay independent. So they decided to stay with Epitaph, and they put out And Out Come the Wolves. And Out Come the Wolves is a reference to how all the labels were trying to scramble and sign all these bands, including them. But most people consider this to be Rancid's best work. It's considered to be a masterpiece, not just in 90s punk rock, but in punk rock in general. A lot of fans call this their best album. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like Rancid has a few best albums in their discography, man. But I definitely would put And Out Come the Wolves in that top list of their best records, man. It's one of the most complete records. At this point, Rancid, they started to implement ska punk a bit more into their sound. And with that, I've heard a lot of people, and I've read a lot of people have compared this album to Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman's day in Operation Ivy. And you know, as I was going back and listening to a lot of these records to prepare for this video, I have to agree, man. Listen to the Out Come the Wolves. It does have a bit of an Operation Ivy vibe to it, with the ska punk as well as the punk rock meshed together on here. But there's just so many great records on here. I mean, some of Some of Rancid's biggest hits are on this album, such as Time Bomb, Ruby Soho, Roots Radical. All of these songs have become like signature tracks of Rancid and their best known songs, and they also got a lot of airplay on MTV when these songs drop, man. So it's definitely one of their most popular albums. Along with Let's Go, it's also one of the most accessible records, man. So and Out Come the Wolves, man. It's worth it, man. Even though, just because it was a popular record, man, doesn't mean that it was a sellout record or anything. It was well worth the recognition and the attention that it gets, and that it still gets today. So definitely check out this record, man. This is a awesome record. And also want to point out that the album cover is a tribute to the Minor Threat album cover. That any of you guys is familiar with Minor Threat, you guys all know about that Minor Threat album cover, where I think it's Ian MacKaye's brother that's sitting on the stairs with his head down. Yeah, but this album cover is a tribute to that, man. But this is a great record, man. One of the best punk rock albums of all time, in my opinion. I really enjoy this record. Just a wonderful album. Okay, so next album on the list that we're going to talk about is Life Won't Wait, released in 1998. And this is actually another one of my favorite Rancid albums too, because this is honestly, in my opinion, one of Rancid's most ambitious albums. I ain't gonna say one of, I'm gonna say it is their most ambitious album, because this is not just a punk rock album right here, man. They implement so much on here. Probably their most ska influenced record too, man. There's a lot of ska punk on this record. They still have the traditional punk rock sound on here, but most of it is ska punk, as well as reggae and even dub. A lot of times I like to compare this album to when The Clash did London Calling. I kind of compare it to that, or maybe their next album after that called Sandinista, where they experimented with all kinds of different sounds, such as hip hop and stuff like that. Maybe this album was more inclined with The Clash's Sandinista, but they just experiment with so many different sounds on here, man. Especially with ska punk and reggae and dub. A lot of that is over here, man, and the subject matter is even a bit more like political and, you know, with social commentary and things of that nature, which is something that Rancid has always pretty much done on their earlier records, but it's just more in line with the sound and the vibe of this record, man. They're really touching on a lot of things that even today are still relevant. But 22 tracks, but, you know, of course this is a punk record, so, you know, the tracks aren't that long, but they collaborate with so many artists within the reggae and ska genres of music and everything like that, man. It's just a lot of great music on here. And Tim Armstrong, he actually had recently, I don't know if he had gotten married to his now ex-wife, Brody Dow, you know, from the Distillers. I hope I pronounced her last name right, but I know at the time him and her had either just met, or they were dating, or they had just gotten married. But there's a few songs on here that's where he expresses his feelings about her and stuff on here. But definitely a great record, man. I enjoy it, man. I really like the fact that they took a chance, they took a risk, and they decided to explore different avenues with their sound. Because I'm guessing at this point the band had become better musicians, and they wanted to show that. They definitely showed it on this record, how good of musicians they had become at this point. But yeah, man, Life Won't Wait by Rancid, man. This is a great record. I think it's a bit underrated. I don't really hear people talk about it as much, which I don't know why, because I think it's a wonderful record. But definitely check out this record, man. If you want to hear Rancid be as a more diverse and advanced band, because they really take things to a different level with this record, man. Definitely check out Life Won't Wait. This is a great record. I highly enjoy it, so check it out. All right, so next album on the list is Rancid 2000, released in 2000. The album is actually called Rancid, but most people refer to it as Rancid 2000. So this is the third album or third release that they put out that was self-titled. So that's why most people call it Rancid 2000. But this album, after the you know, more risk-taking, ambitious nature that they took with Life Won't Wait, Rancid 2000, man, they took it back to their roots a little bit, man. They went back for that more rawer, aggressive approach. and they even go into hardcore punk territories a little bit more. Like the first few songs, 3 or 4 songs on this album is like straight up punk rock, hardcore punk songs. I mean, most of them don't last no more than like 30 seconds or end just under a minute. But not every song on the album is like that, man. After a while, the record kind of they kind of revert back to the style that they displayed on like the first Rancid album. You know, they kind of revert back to that style, and then they even implement a little bit more, well, not a little bit more, but a little bit of the ska punk from the records after that. You know, from Out Come the Wolves and Life Won't Wait. But for the most part, man, this is just a balls to wall punk rock record, man. It's probably the most hardcore punk that Rancid has ever been, in my personal opinion. It's got like 20 tracks or so? Yeah, 22 tracks. But like I said, the songs are real short. They're real like abrasive and straight to the point. Most of them don't last maybe like 30 seconds or under a minute. But yeah, I mean, it's a solid record, man. It's a solid record, man. I mean, it's coming behind Life Won't Wait, which was so much more ambitious, but at the end of the day, man, if you're somebody that wants that pure, raw, no holds bar, just straight to the point Rancid, man, this is definitely an album that you should check out, man. I listen to it. I don't listen to it that much, but every once in a while I'll throw it on, just to jam out too, man. But it's still a great record, man. So definitely check out Rancid 2000 right here. It's a solid album in their discography. And the last album on my list, but certainly not the least, we're going to talk about Indestructible, released in 2003, man. And I gotta say, man, the Indestructible, the more that I listen to this album, it's really starting to become one of my favorites, man. This is a very overlooked record, very underrated, man. And I think a lot of it comes from that this album received a lot of backlash when it was initially released, because apparently Rancid had signed like a special deal with Warner Brothers to distribute the record, and a lot of fans got angry about that and called them sellouts and so forth like that. And so in an effort to combat all that backlash, they released the record with no traces of Warner Brothers imprints or anything on here. But they really just distributed this album, and it came out on Hellcat Records, which is Tim Armstrong's label. And I forgot to mention, Rancid 2000 was actually the first album that came out on Tim Armstrong's Hellcat Records. Life Won't Wait was the last record they did with Epitaph, but Rancid 2000 was the first album they did on Tim's own label, Hellcat Records, and this would be the second release from Rancid on Hellcat Records, man. But I like this record. I actually think it's probably one of Rancid's most complete records. Reason being is because there's something on this album for every Rancid fan. You have the more hardcore, traditional like punk rock sounds, and you also have the ska punk and even the more like kind of reggae, kind of dub styles that they displayed on Life Won't Wait. All of those styles are implemented on this record, man, and I think they did a pretty good job. Like the more I listen to it, man, there's just so much more on this record that I really enjoy. So I don't know, man. I think Indestructible is an underrated classic that I think more people should take the time and listen to. I think it got unfairly overlooked and criticized because they signed a distribution deal with Warner Brothers. I mean, all Warner Brothers was doing was just putting the record out to more people. Everything else, I'm pretty sure, was still independent under Hellcat Records. But in any case, man, I really dig this record. I think it's a good one. Like I said, I still think that it's an underrated classic that more people should kind of go back and listen to and see like the genius of it, man, because it's a really dope record, man. Really good record. So Indestructible, released in 2003. Alright, so that's it for this video. Me discussing Rancid's studio albums from 93 to 2003. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a favor and hit that like button. Give me a thumbs up because it helps with the algorithm. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my channel, as well as hit the bell so you'll be notified anytime I drop new content. I want to thank all my new subscribers, all my old subscribers, everybody that's taking the time to watch the videos, and I appreciate everybody that's been supporting me, and I hope everybody has a safe rest of the New Year's, holidays, whenever this video drop, man. I just hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and as always, love, peace, and music. Peace out.